What is up, everybody? Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Camp. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for being here. It's one of those days yet again, where we have all kinds of news and stuff to cover. That's right. We're gonna dig into the stuff. How is everybody? Click thumbs up, click share, all that good stuff, and please welcome Jafar Khan.
Hey Lee, hey everyone. Good to be here.
I've been told this is now called the awesome hair news coverage.
Yeah, I'm really looking like I crawled out of a Saddam bunker right now, but that's
You look a
that's how
little
it goes
like
sometimes.
you look a little like you've been hiding from the police for a little while, at least.
Yeah.
But
I look like I'm going to be hung for my crimes.
if they hadn't found the person that appears to be the CEO killer, then I'd be suspicious of why you're in hiding. But
Exactly. I look like I'm in the early stages of my own.
so yeah, one of the bigger stories we'll be going into today is all the details about the young man who appears to be or is suspected to be. I don't want to overstate it. Obviously, all of this could be bullshit put forward by the police or the media or whoever else, but appears to be the shooter of the CEO, the United Healthcare CEO, and by the way, a couple of fun facts, Jaffer. He's from Baltimore, where I live, and his
Nice.
birthday is July 21st, my birthday. So,
Wow. I'm
you know,
surprised. I'm surprised you're not sitting next to him right now. I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're not on a lineup of people walking forward one at a time. Is this the guy?
lineup. So this guy's name is Luigi Mangione, and a lot of this is being covered in the mainstream media, but I also want to get into what is apparently his manifesto, or at minimum his note of why he did what he did, at least some of it, which I don't think the mainstream media is getting into that as much. But Luigi Mangione, he went to he fairly wealthy family, so wealthy that they call him the scion of a Baltimore real estate family. And yet this just goes to show, because I'll get into just what this healthcare company did to him and his mother and etc. in a few minutes. It goes to show that even the wealthy are not, even the pretty damn wealthy are not free of being royally fucked by U.S. health insurance, which creates nothing. You just need to keep reminding everybody. It creates nothing. It does nothing. It's just a middleman to steal money between you and your doctor. That is it.
It's like the landlord of health.
So he was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania, after a McDonald's employee recognized him. Oh yeah, and another key point: it doesn't seem like they would have had a picture of his face, because he wore a mask the entire time he was in New York, except for one camera photo when he was flirting with the cashier at the hostel, the check-in person at the hostel he was staying at, and she asked to see his smile while they were flirting, and so he pulled down his mask. So I think we can safely blame women for this.
I was waiting for someone to do it, and I'm glad you're always the brave pioneer in front of the line.
Damn women always be causing CEO killers to get caught. But as far as I know, that's the only photo they had of his actual, other than his eyes, of his actual face. And so he's been arrested in Pennsylvania, charged in New York. Apparently on Goodreads, on his Goodreads account online, he left a 4-star review of Ted Kaczynski's The Unabomber's Industrial Society and its future. I would advise everyone, if you're going to assassinate a CEO, don't leave 4-star reviews of other people who have killed people.
Delete your reviews of the Unabomber as one of the early steps.
you just those 4-star reviews will come back to haunt you. 4 and 5-star reviews, they will always come back to haunt you. He described the Unabomber as a violent individual, rightfully imprisoned, who maimed innocent people. While these actions tend to be characterized as those of a crazy Luddite, however, they are more accurately seen as those of an extreme political revolutionary, is what he said. He's a 2016 graduate of Gilman School, which is about 3 minutes from where I live in Baltimore. And the tuition, I didn't know this till I read it in these articles. The tuition for this high school is $40,000 a year. And he was the valedictorian. He then went to University of Pennsylvania and studied computer science, earned a bachelor and master's degrees in engineering. And so, as many people are pointing out, this all adds up to the life of, they say a promising young man, right? Why didn't he just, follow the standard path of a valedictorian from a prep school with an engineering degree? Why take this turn? Well, when I'm not justifying what he did, but I think understanding why people might behave differently than what what we view as normal in the society. You look at, are they going through pain? Is their family going through pain? And as you get to know more about what went on in his life, it seems that he had a lot of back issues, severe back pain, back surgery. And I'm assuming he was fucked around during that, during that, all that shit that went on for apparently years. But more importantly, according to his manifesto, is his mother's pain. And when I first heard about it, like before they'd found anyone or suspected anyone or anything, they had, they said this guy killed this healthcare CEO. I had thought, okay, this is someone that either saw their wife or their parents in severe pain from the healthcare industry, assuming it was a man, and seems to be true. I know you guys can't read this, but I thought I'd put it on the screen anyway. It's too small, but because these are photos, so I can't zoom in on them or anything. But he says this was apparently found with him when he was arrested. And I know a lot of people are talking about why would he be dumb enough to be arrested. Now, the dumb enough to sit in McDonald's with his mask off, that I can't explain. But they're like, why would he have a gun in his manifesto? I think he thought that this was going to end in a shootout or something like that. So he had his gun, he had his manifesto. Something else said there was a note saying, "I'll save you the long investigation. I acted alone," basically confessing to something. And it's like, why would you write that unless you thought high likelihood you're not walking away from this? And I think that's why he had this stuff with him. But there's some interesting stuff. I think everybody should read his manifesto. There's some.
Just don't review it.
Yeah, don't give it a 4-star review.
Yeah.
I'll put the link in the chat. But to sum it up, I mean, I'll read the first little part. He says, the Second Amendment means I am my own chief executive and commander-in-chief of my own military. I authorize my own act of self-defense in response to a hostile entity making war on me and my family. He then talks about how Nelson meant nonviolence. He doesn't mention that Mandela came from a very violent, what was labeled a terrorist group. Mm-hmm. And as long as I'm on that topic, people have pointed out that the U.S. is right now talking about delabeling the terrorists that have taken over Syria as terrorists. They will no longer be labeled as a terrorist group. Meanwhile, Mandela was apparently president for 14 years or something before they took him off the terrorism list. Anyway, he talks about how they spoke for nonviolence, but he says, is their nonviolent creed not capitalistic? Nonviolence keeps the system working at full speed ahead. What did it get us? They want us to be nonviolent so that they can grow fat off the blood they take from us. The only way is through. And anyway, he then goes on to detail mainly his mother's issue with issues with the healthcare system. She had what's it called again? Neuro. Oh man, I'm not going to find it. They diagnosed my mother with severe neuropathy or neuropathy. Severe neuropathy at 41 years old. And anyway, the pain gets worse and worse in her life. And she, to the point she can't, despite trying every painkiller they could come up with, she's waking up screaming, and he can't do anything about it. Like there's nothing that can be done. So he just has to listen to her scream for hours on end. And she tries to get all these tests and all these, medicines, everything. And some of them are covered, but for the most part, they're not covered. And UnitedHealthcare fights them at every inch. But then we'll also do things like tell them they need to fax paperwork from the doctor, but then say faxes don't actually count. So you have to mail them from the doctor, and then they'll mail it in. And then UnitedHealthcare will say, we never received it. And it's the level that they go to try and say they can't cover anything is truly just like unbelievable. And that's why they are rated the highest in refusing to cover anything amongst all of these healthcare providers or healthcare insurers. And like, this is a shit system to begin with, and they are the worst of the worst.
Yeah. And since this particular CEO took over, which I believe he was only CEO for 4 years, there was like a $4 billion increase in profits from his policies, like instituting the AI automatic deny, which they knew it had a 90% error rate, but they seem to be all right with that.
Yeah, the AI thing is particularly egregious. This AI system that just tells them to refuse stuff without you can never know what the AI is looking at to choose to refuse things. But obviously, whatever it is the AI is looking at has increased refusals by a high percentage. So these people are just the lowest sacks of shit. Just they're the maggots living on diseased animal carcasses, and that's what their profession is. And they make a crazy amount of money by being a middleman to healthcare that doesn't even need to exist.
And even beyond a middleman to healthcare, they are denying healthcare. They are effectively mass murderers. I thought it was funny that after this shooting, we're not having any conversations. We never had a conversation about mental health, which is what always happens after a shooting. But this time the victim was a healthcare CEO, and everyone was like, well, the logic checks out. So clearly this person is not deranged. So
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Most people don't. They think that maybe this shouldn't be legal, but they don't actually think that this guy is like unhinged.
Yeah, exactly.
they're
not
they're
like,
kind of
what's
like,
going on with the mental health in our country where people are doing these crazy, senseless violence. Like, this was not senseless. Feel how you want about violence, obviously, but this violence was not senseless. Everyone was like, oh, I understand the sense in what he did, clearly.
And the way the elite are kind of covering the story, the elite meaning the media, our elite media, legacy media, but suspect and CEO killing withdrew from life of privilege and promise. Well, it stops being a life of privilege when it's you and your mother screaming in agony. It starts being something else. And to me, it just shows how even those who are really rich in our society, like, can be completely screwed over by this system. Most of the time, the really rich are so rich that even when they're screwed over, it's not that drop in the bucket. They have plenty of money to deal with it. But it can actually get so insane that even the rich don't have the money to keep paying tens of thousands of dollars a month for like, various procedures and things. Um, and and I can't remember what I was going to say next, but I was going to say that our healthcare industry, like the way it destroys lives, it's not a smart bomb. Like it destroys poor people's lives, sure, but it heavily destroys middle class, upper middle class. Now you get into the really rich, and most of them don't really care because again, they can handle it. But you right just below the really, really rich, you can have your life, you can have your whole life savings gone. I mentioned it the other day. A study found that I can't remember. It's a very large percentage. It's over 50% of everybody who gets diagnosed with cancer. Whether even if you survive, you'll lose your whole life savings. And 1 in 3 Americans will have cancer at some point. Yeah. So basically, 1 in 3 Americans, you're going to have cancer, and the vast majority of those are going to lose their whole life savings if they have life savings.
If they have savings, and that kind of like. On the media, really highlighting the fact that he's Ivy League and comes from privilege, you could almost argue, and this is me, again, this is just speculation, but you could almost argue that him coming from that background makes him almost more of an ideal candidate to do something like this, because he someone with that level of privilege generally is probably used to getting what they want in life. Like they're not used to being screwed over so royally. To experience like their country treat them in such an extremely unjust manner is new to someone like that. So you could even make the argument that makes him it's almost less surprising that he has some privilege in his life.
I had the same thought that because he came from a life where it seemed like there weren't a lot of problems, compared to most people in America, then when there is just an epic horror show, you're like, this is not supposed to be like this. This you malfunction, or maybe begin to function in a way that is very different. And I think that people who come up in America as not that wealthy, or the poor, the people that are beaten up by this system, it's not that they're fine with being harmed and not having privilege. But it is that they grow accustomed to like, oh, this life is shit. Like this country treats us like shit, and this is my day to day.
Yeah.
And yet he did not have that. He was not accustomed to that.
Not at all.
I'll just read the end of it. It says, UnitedHealthcare constantly changed their claim filing procedure. They said my mother's doctor needed to fax her notes. Then UnitedHealthcare said they did not save faxed patients' correspondence and required a hard copy. Then they said they never received the hard copies. They were unable to approve the claim until they had received and filed the notes. They promised coverage and broke their word to my mother. With every delay, my anger surged. With every denial, I wanted to throw the doctor through the glass wall of the hospital waiting room, but it wasn't them. It wasn't the doctors, the receptionists, administrators, pharmacists, imaging technicians, or anyone we ever met. It was UnitedHealthcare. He says, people are dying. Evil has become institutionalized. Corporations make billions of dollars off the pain, suffering, death, and anguished cries in the nights of millions of Americans. UnitedHealthcare violated their contract with my mother, with me, and tens of millions of other Americans. This threat to my own health, my family's health, and the health of our country's people requires me to respond with an act of war. So those are his words. And apparently it's just 2 employees at a McDonald's in Altoona who disagree with that.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of... I think we're all looking forward to more of these pieces falling into place, because this is all the information we got so far. And there's clearly so many, like, not inconsistencies, but little quirks to the story that obviously seem odd. But a lot of these things, once you learn the full story in hindsight, most real life stories do have strange little quirks, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was quite appropriate in the American system. Told you a lot about the American system, that on the same day that they catch the suspected killer of that CEO, and he will surely have the book thrown at him. I think, yeah, he may get a high-priced lawyer with the family he has, but a high-priced lawyer isn't going to get you off of that because the ruling elite will defend itself. But anyway, same day, the man who choked to death a mentally ill person on a NYC subway is completely acquitted.
Yeah.
You are now allowed, and you live in New York City, Joffer, so this may come in handy to you. You are now allowed to execute people who you find rather annoying on the train.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what it was. Like, obviously, racism is a huge factor when it comes to this story. But it's like if you compare Jordan Neely with whatever Brian, the CEO, right?
Jordan Neely is sorry for everybody, is the name of the guy that was killed.
Yes, sorry, to clarify. Yeah, he was an unhoused.
He's by the way, he was a Michael Jackson impersonator. That's why I'm showing that image. It wasn't just because you like said a black guy and I pulled up Michael Jackson.
Yes, I would hope that your audience would give you that benefit of the doubt, but it's good to clarify.
Yeah, it's good to clarify.
But like this healthcare CEO is guilty of legally nothing, but morally, denying life-saving coverage to tens and thousands of people. Whereas this Jordan Neely was guilty of having a mental breakdown on a train. And what he's really guilty of in that moment was making people feel
uncomfortable.
Yeah. And being unhoused and black. And I feel like, unfortunately, because of the racism in this country, a lot of people were able to empathize with those people on the train and are defending someone from literally executing him on the spot. But it's about,
you know what this is? I'm sure some people have made this comparison, but it has some similarities to the subway vigilante from when the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a documentary done about it where, but the difference is this guy was having a mental breakdown and was not making a lot of sense. The New York vigilante thing, basically, I think it was three young black men were harassing him and maybe trying to steal his wallet, and he then shot and killed one of them, paralyzed for life another one, and he was like a hero in New York. This has some similarities, but of course they and the color, the one doing the killing is white and the victims are black. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, obviously, but we could just say, for the sake of argument, that America's divided 50-50 on this, where half the country is like, yeah, you can't just kill someone for being annoying on the train, and the other half are imagining being on that train. The other half of the country is imagining, well, if I was, as a racist person, if I was on that train, I also would have felt uncomfortable.
Right. Right. Well, the other half, also the half of the country is going, well, how annoying.
Exactly. But when you compare that to this, which is what we're doing, the whatever Luigi killing the CEO guy, we're not seeing this 50-50 split in public opinion. We are seeing America in this rare moment of being united behind Luigi, the healthcare CEO killer. So I think that's an interesting difference between the two cases.
Yeah, that is true. There have been many protests about the Daniel Penny case.
Yeah, we haven't been seeing. Yeah,
there have been many people protesting because he wasn't a cop, but he is an ex-Marine, and Eric Garner's mother was at the trial and said some words afterwards about this terrible lack of justice, and it has some similarities to Eric Garner, where it is a black man who's just choked to death because he's making white people uncomfortable. In Eric Garner's case, he was selling cigarettes on the street and the cops decided to attack him. In this case, it was someone having a mental breakdown. But yeah, it is. There's a lot to talk about in the fact that this verdict, this jury decides it's okay to choke someone to death at the same day that they seem to have caught the suspected CEO killer.
Yeah, people say this a lot about white supremacy, but like the idea of white comfort, like superseding anything else. And I feel like this is a good example of that.
So I feel like there's an easy segue here from the killing of the CEO, which is a multi-millionaire. I think he was making $40 million a year or more, who is destroying lives. And Ben Norton posted this of the various people coming into the Trump administration who are billionaires or hundreds of millionaires. And this really shows what our government is becoming. And this is not just Trump. I mean, it's been headed this way for decades, but you got Donald Trump with 5.4 billion. I mean, people argue about that, but it's clearly billions. Elon Musk with 300 billion. Vivek Ramaswamy with $1 billion. You've got Scott Bessent, who's going to be is likely going to be the is the Treasury Secretary. Oh yeah,
do you know how does Vivek Ramaswamy have $1 billion? I had no idea about that.
That I haven't looked up. Actually, while I keep talking, you can Google that.
Yeah, let me do that. I'm interested.
I'll give you the work. Howard Lutnick, Commerce Secretary, $2 billion. Linda McMahon, the WWE co-founder or whatever, or co-CEO before. Education Secretary, $2.6 billion. Chris Wright, Energy Secretary, $171 million. Oh, poor guy. Only $171 million? What's he been doing all day? Doug Burgum, Interior Secretary, $1.1 billion. Stephen Witkoff, Middle East Envoy, $500 million. Warren Stevens, Ambassador to the UK, $3.3 billion. Stephen Feinberg, Deputy Defense Secretary, $5 billion. Mossad Boulos, Middle East Advisor, reported billionaire we don't know the number. Charles Kushner, the ambassador to France, that's Jared Kushner's father, almost $3 billion. Dr. Oz, $100 million. Jarek Eisenman, the NASA administrator, who has $2 billion. Frank Basignano, Social Security Commissioner, which I assume means Social Security Destroyer, almost $1 billion. Kelly Loeffler, the face of insider trading, $1 billion. And David Sachs, AI and crypto czar, oh God, reported billionaire. But this is also fascinating because part of the point of the way the U.S. system was set up was to create kind of a buffer zone of supposed democracy between the ruling elite, the Carnegies and the Vanderbilts and the Rockefellers, and the elected officials who were supposedly running the country. It was basically to give them a buffer zone. So when the American people get furious about inequality, about how shit this system is, people will point at the politicians, and the billionaire ruling class will be above it, out of sight, out of mind a little bit. And now the buffer zone is deteriorating. This is just billionaires running the government.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's America. I mean, it's literally what Trump promised, right? Running this shit like a business. Vivek, by the way, made his $1 billion just investing in pharma companies. So pretty nice. Straightforward. Nothing shocking there.
I thought you were going to say selling fidget spinners off.
I wish. I was hoping for something goofy and stupid, but just normal, infuriating.
Just normal investing in the death cycle of American capitalism.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm just going to pause for a second here to say, hey, everybody, the first performance, and there's only 2 ever, of my live stand-up comedy Zoom show while seated will be tomorrow. So first one tomorrow, second one Saturday. Those are the only 2 that will ever happen. And I have stuck with that promise from the last Zoom shows. They have never been performed again, and they have not been posted online. So, but that is at leecamp.simpletix.com. By the way, you can also get free tickets by becoming a member at leecamp.net or patreon.com/leecamp. Thanks to Truth to Tweet, who has donated 20 free tickets for those who sign up at either of those places. Also, I'm offering that if you truly, truly cannot afford the $5, email me, and I have a limited number of free tickets. So email me at leecampmail, M-A-I-L, at gmail.com. But for all of you who want to grab your $5 tickets, it's leecamp.simpletix.com. And it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to talk about being in Tibet. I'm going to tell the story of my disastrous trip to Israel from many years ago that I've never told before. And going to be a lot of good times. Openers: Jonathan O'Donnell, Naomi Caravani, Eleanor Goldfield. Joffer has opened for one in the past, and he was the best ever.
Thanks.
All right, moving on. This is what, speaking of, again, I got a great segue. Speaking of the billionaires that are running our society, will soon be running our society. They have been touting very excitedly Argentina. And I know I covered this a little bit the other day, but more information has come out. And they basically are saying Argentina has it right. Argentina's doing it right. Let's do it like Argentina.
Yeah.
And Argentina is now run by a far right. He calls himself an anarcho-capitalist, but really just a lunatic libertarian.
Yeah. Why can't the rest of Latin America be white libertarians like this guy?
Yeah.
It's the Argentina way.
Yeah. And here is some updates from Argentina. This is what the U.S. will soon be if you listen to Elon Musk and others. Argentina, 65.5%. Oh, wait. When I last read this, it was translated. Okay. I was like, I am going to not be able to. Argentina, 65.5% of children under 18 are now in child poverty, and 20% live in extreme poverty. 50% of the Argentine population, 23 million people, is now below the poverty line, according to a recent report. This is Javier Milei's freedom that he has brought to Argentina. And a lot of this, by the way, these numbers have changed significantly since he got in power. He's only been in power a couple of years. And this is not like this was going on before him and just continued. These numbers have changed significantly since he got into power. So this is, it is rare. Like I said, we're kind of like, the mask is off. The billionaires are now running the government in like, they're actually in the positions as opposed to being in the wings. And they're also telling you what they're going to do with the country. They're like, we are going towards Argentina. And so you just look at the numbers of Argentina and you can go, oh, that's what they're promising. Like, they're just outright promising.
Yeah, it's like you don't even need a revolving door anymore. They're just behind the desk. They're there. They're on the payroll. Right?
Well, you don't need the revolving door. They're out front of the building. They just stand out front of the building.
Yeah.
And greet you as you try and head in. Thank you, Indy B, for the donation over on Rumble. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Indy B. Okay, so let's move on to some more upbeat news. Israel for a minute.
Nice. Perfect.
My goal is to make Jaffa regret ever doing this. Israel has, and this is, when Israel does something, it's called capturing. When the rest of the world does it, it's stealing. Israel has captured Syrian territory after Assad's regime has collapsed. This is either stealing or invading. It's both those things. It invading to steal parts of Syria.
It's Israeling. That's what I call it.
That's what happened. That's what's happening right now. The Israeli military captured territory on the Syrian side of the border in Golan Heights on Sunday after the Assad regime collapsed. The IDF said in a statement. So they're bragging about it. This is the first time Israel has captured stolen territory in Syria since the war in 1973. Israel notified the U.S. in advance about its operation to take control of the buffer zone on the border with Syria and several other key locations on the Syrian side of the border. And so you increasingly see why the U.S. and Israel wanted to get Assad out so much. Here's another reason, because Israel has a lot of land they want to steal. And they're working on doing that. So.
Oh, yeah. Seems like the free-for-all is starting right away. Why would it not?
Yeah, no, you want to get in quick. It's kind of like Black Friday. You don't wait outside Walmart and see how things look later.
Exactly. You got to get your hands dirty if you want that flat screen TV.
Meanwhile, Netanyahu is the first prime minister to take the stand as a witness in his own corruption trial. And I find this funny in multiple ways. The fact that he's perpetrating genocide while on trial for corruption. So he's like, guys, my hands are full. I'm trying to ethnically cleanse a whole region. I can't be dealing with this.
Israel's like, no, we got to figure out this whole Supreme Court thing that you did 2 years ago.
Yeah, and he's accused of like corruption, bribes, all forms of corruption. And I also find it funny that this is what the so-called law, the legal system in Israel is upset about, right? You can bomb Palestinian children all day long. You can assassinate journalists, assassinate doctors, assassinate nurses, assassinate women and children endlessly. You can just murder them all. None of that gets him on trial in Israel. Mm-hmm. What they find annoying is he took a bribe.
Yes. He's a threat to democracy.
One case revolves around him receiving a supply line of cigars and champagne from billionaire associates. You can sit there bombing women and children and innocent people all day long, and yet it's that he got cigars for free. That's what they got him for. That's what they nabbed him for.
Yeah, I mean, before October 7th, Israelis were on the streets protesting this. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Is the line.
Because many were pointing out that without October 7th happening, Netanyahu would almost definitely not be prime minister, but even might be in jail. Mm-hmm. So endless war is very good and necessary for Netanyahu. But I also do not like when people just pin all the blame on Netanyahu and say, oh, if we could just get rid of Netanyahu, then this would be... It's like, no. The entire Israeli government is endorsing most of this genocide, and the Israeli people, in fact, most of them are endorsing this genocide.
Yeah, it's manifest destiny in action. I mean, that's what Israel is. So this is what it looks like.
So on the topic of Israel and their genocide, and I just, I still cover it pretty much every show to some degree. I used to spend like the full first half hour on it every week, but after a year of that, it's becoming tough to maintain that level of new information. But I also don't want to act like it's not happening because I've covered it a lot. So here's a video of a doctor who has come back from Gaza, and he talks about one of the worst things that he saw regularly.
I found particularly disturbing was that a bomb would drop maybe on a crowded, tented area, and then the drones would come down and...
Please take your time. We're incredibly grateful that you're making the time to be here today. And I can only imagine just how it has impacted you and will continue to impact you. And I feel, because you can't unsee what you've seen, but being able to share that with us really helps us hold legislators particularly to account. So we do appreciate the time that you're making for us today. Thank you.
So the drones would come down and pick off civilians, children. And we had description after description. This is not, an occasional thing. This was day after day after day, operating on children who would say, I was lying on the ground after a bomb had dropped, and this quadcopter came down and hovered over me and shot me. And that's clearly a deliberate act, and it was a persistent act, persistent targeting of civilians day after day. We had 1 or 2 mass casualty incidents every day. What I think.
So, I think you guys all got it, but basically it's saying that a bomb drops, and when people go to try and help those who have been injured or are dying, a quadcopter, which is like a drone, I believe, would come overhead and then shoot those who were trying to help. And as he's saying, this is a clear case of shooting innocent people, innocent civilians. It's a clear case of genocide and ethnic cleansing. It has nothing to do with, there's no reason to suspect that someone who's come out to help an injured person would be a Hamas militant or whatever bullshit Israel tries to say. So, here's another doctor who's gets back from what he's seen, and it's just cut and dry genocide.
Yeah, it's just the sadism that you see from Israel that goes from top to bottom. You see the IDF soldiers posting videos on their social media of them laughing, putting on women's clothes, and then you see it reflects the policy from the very top, and it makes sense. Like, when you see what Israel is. I remember, like, a long time ago, I had a friend who was a Zionist, and we would have these arguments back and forth, and he was saying that, like, it's no wonder that Israel continues to elect these further far right politicians, because he's like, look at the people on the other side of the wall that are like a constant threat. So of course they're gonna go for the politicians who are offering them security above all else. And I was trying to tell him, I'm like, dude, you're almost there. You're so close. Like, that's where he ends his analysis. But just take it one step further. Like, yeah, it's because you have people on the other side of a fucking wall. Like, if that's the foundation of your society, of course, this is where it's going to lead. It's going to lead to this hatred, this fear, the hatred, and then the sadism that we're seeing today all throughout Israeli society.
And dehumanization. I think,
of course,
a wall is one of the biggest ways to just teach people, hey, those people over there are not real humans. They're outside of our society. They are supposed to be treated differently. They're not supposed to be treated like regular people in our society. And that allows for then, and you see some of the language coming from Israeli officials calling them cockroaches and things like that. And this was the same as the Nazis and many genocides before that and after that. It's the people that are mass murdered. You've got to act like they aren't human. And people have also pointed to part of the reason that the U.S. was okay with dropping the atomic bombs, even though if you look into the history, there was no need to drop the atomic bombs on Japan. But part of the reason that so many Americans were okay with it was because the Japanese had been so dehumanized. They were like cockroaches. They were like non-humans. They don't count. And you just see it again and again in genocides. This is now your favorite guy, Jaffer has asked that we show Matt Miller more often. So
yeah, it eases my anxieties about the world, and just his face, just his charm and his charisma really does a lot for my endorphins up here.
oozes charisma, this guy,
Mm-hmm.
as much as Nosferatu. And
Yeah.
this is him talking about the ICC yet again.
The president said yesterday that the Assad regime, or Assad himself, should be held accountable. Will you support his application to stand in front of the ICC as a war criminal who committed crimes against humanity?
So I just want to, in case people couldn't hear it, she's asking whether Assad, who has fled to Russia as Syria has fallen, should stand in front of the ICC for war crimes. Now, you go back like a year, and the U.S. would have been jumping up and down saying, yeah, Assad should be in front of the ICC for war crimes. But now it's a little more complicated, isn't it?
We support the work of the ICC. I know that obviously we have
Hilarious.
Hold on. I'm gonna let me address it.
They're laughing.
Yeah, for those of you who can't tell in the podcast, maybe you can't tell. The room of reporters is laughing at him when he says we support the work of the ICC, because they have spent the past month trying to explain why the ICC cannot arrest Netanyahu and that they aren't legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And now he supports the work of the ICC.
We support the work of the ICC, and we fully unequivocally support the Palestinian people on their struggle for freedom by any means necessary.
Yeah, for some reason he didn't quite say all of that, but
we support the work of the ICC until they do something about it.
So we have had a lot. Let me just answer the question. You know what, Matt? Let me answer the question, because I was addressing.
Guys, come on, guys, seriously.
We obviously have had a jurisdictional dispute with them, as it relates to cases against Israel. That is a long-standing jurisdictional dispute.
This reminds me of like a boss who is forced at some point for corporate policy to bring together all the workers and say, look, no sexual harassment will be tolerated. And everyone knows that he's been one of the biggest sexual harassers. So he's up there saying that and they're all laughing. Like, that's
hilarious. And yeah, and then he calls it a jurisdictional dispute. I look, it's just that I don't know if they have the jurisdiction to go after me for the sexual harassment. It's really just a jurisdictional thing. It's nothing based on principle.
Yes, I don't know if their jurisdiction is mainly around ass touches, whereas I tend to be a frontal guy.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, Israel is our friends. Don't get them in trouble. That's his definition of a jurisdictional dispute. But yeah, we know what he means. Like, no, like they're not technically a part of the ICC. It was just how he's trying to get away with this logic, but it's just insane.
That we support broadly their work, and we have supported their work in other cases, despite our jurisdictional dispute when it comes to Israel.
We support their work broadly, but not with Israel.
Wow. I should have just waited for him to finish, because he just said exactly what I was saying sarcastically.
But that said, when it comes to Assad, I suspect that before you ever get to the ICC, the people of Syria are probably going to want him to return home and stand judgment for his crimes in Syria.
He's not going to return home. I mean, these are Russians under.
Well, that statement is ridiculous as well. I'm not going to, with Assad in Syria, I'm not going to answer the question, because Syrians would want him to return home and face the judgment there.
Yeah.
Could you imagine if they did that for everyone? Oh, no, well, we're not going to say, because they've said Putin should stand in front of the ICC. Oh, no, we're not going to say Putin should stand in front of the ICC, because I think people would want him to see judgment in Russia. Of course, all that's insanity.
I doubt that he's going to, I mean, if he's not going to return home from Russia, I doubt he's going to transfer himself to The Hague, leaving Russian protection either. My point being, should he ever decide he's willing to face accountability, or should the Russians decide that they don't want to continue to harbor a war criminal, there may be a whole range of people in line to hold him accountable for it.
Ironically, almost to the minute as he's saying this, that should Russia stop wanting to harbor a war criminal, then he could face the music in front of the ICC, blah, blah, blah. Yoav Gallant, the Israeli genocidal so-called defense minister, former, was in Washington, D.C.
Who has a warrant out for his arrest?
Also has ICC warrant out for his arrest for war crimes.
War criminal, yeah.
So should the United States, and I'm not, of course, leaving out all the U.S. officials who've committed war crimes endlessly, but should the United States stop fostering a war criminal like Yoav Gallant? Maybe he could be shown his way to the ICC.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this guy is so goddamn despicable. And
his smirk. I love his beautiful smile. You know, it reminds me of a wolf spider, my favorite animal.
If people had to spend a half hour with either Matt Miller or Luigi Mangione or whatever his name was, which do you think they'd choose?
Oh, I mean, first of all, I'm proud of us for doing 50 whole minutes without even having the discussion of how hot and sexy and beautiful this man is. I mean, we've been very disciplined. We've done a good job. We've avoided that whole conversation. This could have been a 2-hour discussion. Just
are you talking about Matt Miller?
I'm talking about Luigi Mangione. Of course, I'm not talking about Matt Miller. I can't even sarcastically say that about Matt Miller. I mean, I'm not that good of a comedian. But goddamn, yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone would check Luigi on the whole entire spectrum of gender and sexuality and politics.
Do you remember? This has gotten weird. Do you remember? When the younger Boston bomber was like all of America was talking about how hot he was for some reason, and then they put him on the cover of Rolling Stone and everybody lost their shit.
Yeah. And that guy killed innocent people.
Totally killed innocent people. And this is the difference between, sorry, not the difference. This shows just how important like looks are in America. Mm-hmm. It's like you can be a murderer of innocent people, but if you look good, we'll still put you on the cover of Rolling Stone. I mean,
we'll think about it. You know,
we'll give it a thoughtsy.
Yeah. I mean, this is like a story from like a movie about America. How hot this guy is and who we chose to kill. It's cinema.
But yeah, Matt Miller, I don't think.
Sorry, I forgot we're talking about Matt Miller.
I don't think there's a lot of posters on teenagers' walls of him.
Yeah, not as much.
For his actions.
Okay, I'm going to ask you about the Caesar Act, but do you think that the U.S. is undermining the trust of the international community in organizations like the ICC and ICJ by making an exception for Israel when trying to convince us that Assad and the like of Assad should be brought in front of the
so again, I think it takes two.
Let me answer that for him. Fucking absolutely. Are they delegitimizing the ICC? They've spent months trying to delegitimize the ICC. Mm-hmm. So then you come up with someone like Assad and they go, oh, well, the ICC should suddenly be legitimate again.
Mm-hmm. For better or for worse.
Of the ways in which he could be held accountable for his crimes by just focusing on the ICC. Because I do suspect that whatever comes out of the wake of the past 48 hours, you will see a demand by the Syrian people that he return to Syria.
It's just so stupid answers. This would be like, it's like, okay, so he was arrested. So like if someone were arrested somewhere else, it's like, oh, well, we're not going to prosecute him because we feel like his hometown really wants to get a swing at him.
Yeah, they probably miss him. They want to see him one more time.
Okay, I got to do at least one more story here. This is pretty amazing. This is what our Congress is spending their days doing. The U.S. is involved in multiple wars. The U.S. is involved in helping jihadists, by the way, extremist jihadists who are doing as many people suspected they would do, which is apparently it has begun happening, that they are in various cities in Syria, dragging people out of their homes and executing them for, being connected to the Syrian army, or being not being the right religion, or what have you. Anyway, the U.S. is involved in that. The U.S. is involved in a proxy war in Ukraine, giving billions of dollars to Ukrainians so that they can die by the hundreds of thousands. The U.S. is involved in endless genocide in Gaza, to name a few, just to name a few. But here's what Congress is spending their time with. Congress is considering a bill to have lesson plans that keep kids off communism. A Florida congresswoman is on a mission to stamp out Gen Z's growing support for left-wing ideas, and is turning to a hardline neocon group for help in educating the youth on the evils of communism. In the latest front in the culture war over school curricula, the House of Representatives is set to vote Friday on a bill that would give a congressional stamp of approval to the lesson plans of the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, a group closely linked to fervently hawkish corners of the foreign policy blob. But also this Victims of Communism Memorial garbage, they take basically anything that happens anywhere in a communist country and say it's victims of communism.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if, there was a disease that happened. Whereas if you were to calculate all the victims of capitalism, death by poverty, death by unclean water.
But what's the estimation on the Native Americans? I mean, is that like something like 50 million that were killed off?
By communism, you mean?
Yes,
Communism,
exactly.
Communism totally killed all those Native Americans.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, you were to add up the victims of capitalism, it'd be hundreds of millions. But anyway, they have this hilarious number where they're like 100 million people have died by communism. And so these lunatics are what apparently they want to put in a group they apparently want to put in charge of lesson plans that'll be mandated throughout the United States about the harms of communism.
Yeah, I mean, they're really onto something, because we all know the thing that convinces school children of what is and is not school is school. So just like the overwhelming success of the DARE program, and now that we know in America no one does drugs, I'm sure this will work out phenomenally.
Drugs are over. In fact, when you just said the word drugs, it took me a second to remember what it was you were talking about.
Yeah. We have an epidemic of studying too hard in this country, an epidemic of, but we definitely don't have any sort of a drug epidemic.
But this actually goes to show that I think because we are witnessing kind of these desperate end stages of extreme capitalism, where the environment is collapsing down around us, and you have hundreds of thousands dying from opioid epidemics, and bridges are collapsing. By the way, a bridge collapsed the other day when an Amtrak train ran into it. You have, when you have all that going on, it's going to take more education to get people to not think that something's wrong with the American system.
Yes.
We need
anti-communism lectures in public education, and also we need to get rid of public education as well.
We need to get rid of the Department of Education. Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Salazar said, communism is one of the most destructive political ideologies the world has ever seen. The crucial Communism Teaching Act is important because our youth must remember the crimes of the communists, including those inflicted upon my constituents and their families in Florida's 26th 7th District.
I mean, we already learn about that. We already learned that type of shit in school anyways. You know what I mean? I don't think the solution is more school.
But some schools are not doing a good enough job. I mean, you were at public schools in Texas, right? So maybe it's, maybe the public schools in Seattle are not teaching enough anti-communism.
Exactly. Yeah.
But this is just it's so pathetic. To me, it just screams like we are really like losing the battle here because people are finding out like reality. They're finding out truth. That capitalism is basically just an extraction mechanism to suck all of the wealth, but not just all the wealth, all of the like labor hours, like your life, literally your life is sucked out of the poorer human beings and given to richer human beings in America and in unfettered capitalist systems. So yeah, that's good. That's a positive. But
I mean, yeah, look, they're coming out with this. They're banning TikTok. They're not letting people protest for Palestine. It's all right there.
It's all hands on deck in stopping people from becoming aware of what is going on around this country and around the world. So this is the latest one. It just makes me laugh. And like if it was functioning well.
Lee, I can't hear you anymore. I don't know if it's just me or if y'all can hear Lee, but I couldn't hear that. So I don't know if it's...
No, my mic's unplugging itself.
Okay.
Think we're back, but I was going to wrap up anyway. So tomorrow is my live Zoom comedy show. I'll tell people more about that in just a second. Jaffer, where are you found?
I'm found on your phone, Jaffer Khan, Instagram, TikTok.
Like the NSA, he's on your phone.
I'm on your phone. I'm inside of your phone and I'm listening. And I know you should come. If you live in New York, follow me on Instagram, come to my shows. That's it.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot for being here. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks, everyone.
See you later. So yeah, everybody, the Zoom show is tomorrow, 1 p.m. It's an early show. The other show is later. Saturday is going to be later, but Zoom show is tomorrow. For those of you wondering what it is, because you haven't been to one, a lot of people have been to one of the ones in the past, but it is about an hour and a half. Thank you, Teresa, for the donation. Teresa getting the super chat started. But it's about an hour and a half. I'll be doing a brand new hour of comedy. Some of it is stories I was just in Tibet. Some of it is my trip to Israel, stories about my trip to Israel, my disastrous trip to Israel. And so much more. I'll be analyzing life in this crazy country, all that stuff. But yeah, it's a brand new hour, and it will be performed straight to camera. There will unfortunately not be a live audience, but because I can't do that right now with the way I have everything set up, that would be a far more complicated situation. I hope to one day make it a live audience event, but not for the moment. And the first one is tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, so 6 p.m. I believe in London. And the other half hour, I'll be doing an hour. The other half hour will be the opening acts, two of them from Redacted tonight, John F. O'Donnell, Naomi Caravani. They'll be doing some new comedy as well for you. And then Eleanor Goldfield will be performing a brand new song, never performed before, and some spoken word. And yeah, it's gonna be a great evening. And it's only $5. And as I said, there are two ways if you really hate the $5. There are two ways to get free tickets. You can either become a member at leecamp.net or at Locals. And for everybody who does that, Truth to Tweet has donated 20 free tickets to the show if anyone joins up. Another way to get a free ticket, if you are truly unable to afford the $5, then email me, leecampmail, M-A-I-L, @gmail.com. And I do have some free tickets for those who are struggling. So that is leecampmail, M-A-I-L, @gmail.com. But for all the rest of you who are able to afford it, then it is $5 over at leecamp.simpletix.com. And that's tomorrow. The first performance tomorrow, second performance Saturday. So these are your last chances, folks, to grab a ticket. Also want to remind everybody that the new episode of Just Comedy is up. And you can get pretty much all my links. I don't think the Simple Ticks link is on there, but pretty much all my links are at linktree.com/Lee Camp. That's got the link to the new episode of my Spotify podcast, Just Comedy, which has like all my comedy segments on it. So when you're looking for a laugh, as opposed to news, I mean, I cover news and events as well within the comedy, but it is all comedy centered. So that's called Just Comedy, and it's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Give it a rating, all that good stuff. All right. I will not be doing a live stream tomorrow because I'll be doing the Zoom comedy event, but I will have another live stream Thursday. Fridays are members only. And so see you Thursday, Friday, but I hope you're coming to the Zoom event. I will see you there. Keep fighting.
Well, brother, I salute you, though, man. You're one of the few that bring together this tremendous artistic talent and still be in such deep solidarity with oppressed people.
It's an honor to be here because I'll tell you, Lee, you have one of the funniest shows on television, bar none.
It's an enormous pleasure to be here. While I was waiting, I was leafing through your wonderful book.
Same to you. I love your show. Be happy to come back anytime.
Lee, this is one of the great honors of my long career, just to be in the same earth with you.
I'm sure.
We're just so blinded. We have so many blinders on because our society doesn't want us to know things. And so it takes shows like your show, and
it is clearly designed to eradicate.
Hey, good to see you.
Hey, Jill, how are you? Julian, thanks for joining me. Honor to have you, brother.
Consumerism is a theory that people should behave this way to help each other. It's not.
Mr. George Galloway, thank you so much for joining me in these dark times.
Always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you so much, Lee, for having me on. Keep fighting. Ha ha.